They laughed when I invited them to my awards ceremony. They didn't see the years of sacrifice, the nights spent awake, the battles fought silently. But the truth? It was already mine, quietly built while they ignored me. I woke up that afternoon, holding the envelope with trembling hands. The words inside weren't just an invitation, they were acknowledgement, a recognition for years of service, for endurance that no one had applauded, for courage that had gone unnoticed. I stared at it, feeling both exhilaration and a sting of doubt. Would my family care? Would they understand even for a second the life I had carved in silence? In my house, I had always been the quiet one. My sister's laughter, her booming voice, and my father's nods to boldness were constant reminders that the world valued noise. Confidence was rewarded. Ambition that shouted itself to the rooftops. Me? I kept my victories private, my hard work tucked away behind closed doors, my successes invisible until now. Even telling them about the award felt risky. My thumb hovered over the screen longer than I would admit, drafting a message and deleting it over and over. I wasn't looking for validation. I only feared the indifference I had grown used to. When the messages finally came, my father joked, reducing the ceremony to a trivial moment. My sister said they were busy. My mother tapped, a gesture that could mean everything or nothing. I typed, "That's fine," swallowing the familiar taste of disappointment like I always did. That night I laid out my uniform, fingers tracing the sharp folds and polished buttons. I felt the weight of every unseen year. The nights I wrestled with fatigue. The times I wanted to quit but kept going. In the mirror I confronted myself. Not the one they believed in, but the one who had endured and persevered. And when the ceremony arrived, the applause wasn't for them. It was for me. But would their silence finally break when they saw the truth? The lights were warm, the room quiet. Hundreds of people applauded sacrifices I had carried alone. But my family? They were miles away, oblivious, or so I thought. Would they ever see the real me? The ceremony was unlike anything I had imagined. It wasn't flashy or loud. It was quiet, respectful, filled with people who understood the weight of service without needing explanation. Every step I took toward the stage felt like walking through all the years of unnoticed effort. The audience's eyes were on me. But it wasn't just recognition. It was validation of a life lived with discipline, endurance, and unseen battles. When my name was called, the applause washed over me. My chest swelled, but not from pride in being seen. It was pride in not giving up, even when no one else cared. The citation spoke of leadership, commitment, and perseverance, the exact words my family had never used for me. And for a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to imagine them watching, realizing perhaps they had underestimated the quiet one. Meanwhile, my father was scrolling through his phone, stopping when a photo of me in uniform appeared. His laughter from earlier faded, replaced by an unfamiliar silence. My sister, too, must have paused mid-conversation. They were confronted, if only virtually, by a version of me they had ignored. I imagined the thoughts racing through their minds, confusion, surprise, perhaps guilt. But it didn't matter to me in that moment. I had already achieved my victory, not because they acknowledged it, but because I had endured. When the ceremony ended, I didn't linger for praise or validation. I returned to my seat, clutching the medal in my hands, feeling the weight of every long, invisible year. I realized something essential. My worth was never dependent on their recognition. And yet, even as I walked away with my hard-earned medal, I couldn't shake the question. Would they ever truly understand, or would my silence continue to define me in their eyes? The phone buzzed. Messages from home. Words I had waited decades to hear. But could I trust them? Would their pride be real, or just a shadow of guilt? Later that evening, the messages began arriving. Short texts at first. Congratulations, unexpected pride, awkward apologies. My father's voice on the phone sounded foreign, heavy with hesitation. I didn't realize, he began, stumbling over words that years of laughter and dismissal had made habitual. My sister's tone was smaller than I had ever heard. A soft tremor where confidence once resided. I listened without interrupting. I didn't need to correct them, to remind them of past dismissals or laughter at my expense. Their sudden acknowledgement felt faint, fragile, and strangely distant, but I held no anger. I had learned long ago that validation from others is fleeting. True recognition starts within. As I put my phone down, I thought about the quiet victories of my life. The nights spent preparing, the early mornings, the self-doubt I conquered alone. All of it had been unnoticed until now. Yet, even now, it didn't matter if they understood fully. I had built something enduring. My medal wasn't just a symbol of achievement. It was proof of perseverance, discipline, and unwavering commitment. That night, I carefully placed my award into a drawer, not on display. I didn't earn it for applause or admiration. I earned it for myself. The sense of accomplishment coursed through me like a silent river, steady and unyielding. And as sleep claimed me, I realized something profound. Their recognition, belated as it was, didn't define me. I had always been enough. But even as I settled into this quiet triumph, a small pang of curiosity lingered. Would my family ever truly grasp the depth of my struggle, or would they remain mere spectators of my resilience? I stepped into the house I once called home, expecting nothing, yet sensing everything had shifted. Could years of silence and sacrifice finally be noticed, or would the shadows of the past still linger? Months after the award ceremony, I visited my family home. The air felt different. Familiar smells of cooking and old furniture mingled with something I hadn't noticed before. A faint tension, a careful watchfulness in their eyes. My arrival wasn't greeted with the casual chatter I remembered. Instead, they paused as if measuring me, the weight of my presence finally registering. They asked questions, small at first. How's work? How have you been? Nothing extravagant, nothing monumental. But I could sense they were listening, not to reply but to understand. My father lingered in conversation longer than usual, a quiet curiosity replacing his usual dismissal. My sister's laugh was softer, hesitant but real. The walls that had once echoed indifference now seemed permeable to the idea that I had lived a life of meaning, even without their notice. Walking through the rooms, memories pressed in from all sides. The childhood laughter, the quiet arguments, the invisible struggles I had carried in silence. And yet, the shift in their demeanor wasn't about recognition, it was about realization. I understood then that I no longer needed their approval to feel complete. Their understanding was a bonus, not a requirement. By the time I left, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because the past had been erased, but because I had finally acknowledged something vital. My worth had never depended on their notice. I had always been enough, and this quiet victory was mine alone. But even as I left the house, a thought lingered. What if there were moments of doubt still waiting in the shadows, moments where I'd have to prove my resilience once more? They never believed in me. They laughed, ignored, and dismissed my efforts. But what if the real victory wasn't about proving them wrong but proving myself right? Life returned to its familiar rhythm. Yet everything felt different. The award, once a secret testament to years of sacrifice, lay tucked safely in a drawer. Not for validation, but as a reminder of what I had endured and overcome. Each morning I rose before dawn, greeted the quiet house, and carried on with the discipline that had always defined me. The routines remained, the standards stayed high, but now they were mine entirely, unshaken by anyone's perception or judgment. Messages from my family arrived sporadically. Apologies, praise, small acknowledgments, but I no longer needed them to define my sense of self. I had built a foundation stronger than recognition, steadier than praise, and infinitely more enduring than anyone's opinion. The laughter that once stung now barely brushed my ears. I had learned the ultimate lesson. True worth is not measured by applause, but by the quiet persistence of showing up when it matters most. Visiting my family home months later reaffirmed this truth. They listened more intently, asked thoughtful questions, and for the first time, treated me as someone whose life mattered beyond their perception. But I understood that this shift, however sincere, was no longer essential to my happiness. I had already earned my peace. I had always been enough even when they failed to see it. That evening I sat by my window, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that no one else could dictate. A serene smile spread across my face. The world outside could continue with its distractions, doubts, and indifference. Inside I had one. I had survived the silence, the dismissal, and the doubt. I had proven to myself in ways no one else could measure that my life, my discipline, and my endurance were victories worth celebrating. And as night fell, I realized something profound. No award, no applause, no recognition could ever match the quiet triumph of knowing I had always been enough.